So the last sort of, I guess, um, whoops, Venn diagram sort of counting I'd like to talk about is when we have three sets. So what does a general three set Venn diagram look like? Well, we'll have three sets A, B, and C, and we want to make sure that we have every single possibility of uh, set intersection or whatever represented. So this is A, this is B, and this is C. Now, I tried doing this before in an initial test, but it didn't really work well. So let me just highlight in A the part that's only in A. Let me also highlight it in the part that's only in B. And let me finally highlight in the part that's only in C. Okay. Now, I'm going to use the marker tool, I guess. Now, okay, what do A and B share, but not, I chose this nice different color. Okay, what do A and B share that, let me make that a little bit darker. This is what A and B share that C has no part of. So I'm going to start drawing these colors over here because I'm going to be sort of referring to them. Let's go for this sort of color right here. This is what A and C share, which B has no part of. Sort of color that in right there. And this is what B and C share, which A has no part of. Color that right there. And finally, the very inside, let me just give it some sort of nice bright color. Something like that. Yeah. That's a nice bright color. Let me find something else. Red. I haven't drawn red yet. Okay, so that's what they all share. And finally, let me just draw some highlighted bits. Okay, so what do each of these pieces mean? Now, I think it's fairly evident that this red piece right here represents everything that's in A and B and C. How about this golden-ish piece over here? I said it's everything that's in A and B, but not in C. Well, if I wanted to write that, I would write A and B. How can I write and not in C? Well, things that are not in C are in C complement. So I'll write it and C prime. Similarly, this bluish piece will be everything that's in A and C, but not B. So that's A and B prime and C. And the purple part is everything in B and C, but not A. So that's A prime and B and C. Now the part that's just in A is whatever's in A, but not B and not C. So that's A intersected with B prime intersected with C prime. Similarly, the part that's just B is A prime intersect with B intersect with C prime. The very last piece, this blue piece right here, is A prime intersected with B prime intersected with C, because everything that's in C but neither B or A. And finally, the very outside is the intersection of the complements of everything. Okay, so that's what our three-set Venn diagram represents. Now let's do an example here. Here is my big three-set Venn diagram. Let me draw these circles fairly big so I can make sure I can write numbers in them somewhat legibly. Okay. So what am I going to talk about? Well, I'm going to talk about Division um, 1A football, whatever. This is college football. Now, there are 100, I'm going to let F just be the whole universe of all the teams. And I'm going to look at these in a couple of different ways. I'm going to let P be those schools that are private. It turns out that most of the schools are state schools or public schools. I'm going to let B stand for those schools which are on a quote-unquote BCS conference, which means that they're basically the major conferences. I'm going to let O stand for old teams, those who started playing before 1900. And there are a surprising number of really old teams. Okay, so this is all the football teams. These are the private schools. These are the BCS schools. And these are the old pre-1900 schools. Now remember this notation, hopefully, because I'm going to have to erase it, because now I'm going to write down some data. The total number of football teams in college Division 1A college football is 120. Now the number of private schools is there are only 17. The number of schools in the major conferences is 64. That's weird. That's more than half of the schools. And the number of old schools pre-1900 is maybe surprisingly, maybe not. It's 81 schools. I think that's interesting. Okay. How many are private and in BCS? Well, 10 of them. So private schools, about 10 out of 17 are in these quote-unquote BCS conferences, although that's going to change pretty soon. But the number of schools that are private and old, maybe not too surprising, is 13 of them, quite a few of them. And the number of schools that are BCS schools and old, major schools and old, is equal to 58. So most of the BCS schools are old. Only 6 of them are relatively new schools. Finally, how many are private and in the major conferences and old? That's 9. So now we want to start filling in numbers over here to figure out, what each of these pieces means. The only one that we explicitly have right now is this 9, which is the number of guys that are in all 3 sets. There are 9 guys that are private, BCS, and old. Now I want to figure out, say, how many guys are in this piece, and this piece. This piece right here represents those that are private and BCS, but not old. Well, how many are private and BCS, but not old? Private and BCS, and not old? Well, private and BCS is 10. Private and BCS and old is 9. So if I subtract off the 9 that are private and BCS and old, I end up with the 1 team, which is private and BCS, but not old. I believe that is Miami, the University of Miami. Okay, how about this piece right here? This is those that are private and old, but not in the BCS conferences. So private, not BCS, and old. Well, if you're private and private and old, there are 13 of those schools. There are 9 altogether that are private and BCS and old. So if I subtract off the 9 that are all 3, I'll get those that are private, old, but not BCS. I get 4. So that goes right here. Finally, to fill in this piece, those that are BCS and old, but not private, I'm going to take, not private, but BCS and old. This will be, how many are BCS and old? 58. How many are all 3? 9. So that leaves 49 schools that are public, not private, that are BCS schools, and that are old. Okay. remember that we want the numbers in here to add up to the number of guys that are private in BCS. 1 plus 9 gives us the total of 10. 9 plus 4 gives us the total of 13 of those in P and O. Okay, I've got to pick up the pace here. Let's make sure I can get through all of this. I'm going to erase this information now because we have enough to fill out the rest of what's going on. Now, what if I want to find the guys that are only private? Well, how many privates are there? 17 total. How many guys are private and in one of the other sets? It's 1 plus 4 plus 9. So I'm just looking at the guys that are only private. I subtract 1, 4, and 9, because those are guys which are more than just private. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 9 is 14, so I get 3. So there are 3 private schools that are neither old nor BCS. How many are only in the BCS conferences? It's going to be 64 minus 1 plus 9 plus 49. 1 plus 9 plus 49, that's 59, which leaves us with 5. There are 5 BCS schools that are neither private nor old. New public schools. And finally, which ones are only old? Well, there are a total of 81 old schools, minus 4 plus 9 plus 49, so minus 4 plus 9 plus 49 schools that are old but maybe private or BCS or both. 4 plus 9 is 13, and 13 plus 49 is 59, 62. So that leaves me with 81 minus 62 is 19. So there are 19 guys out here. Finally, there are 120 schools altogether. And how many of them are public and relatively new and not in BCS conferences? Well, this would be 120 minus the numbers inside of all of these guys. 3 plus 1 plus 4 plus 9 plus 5 plus 49 plus 19. And I'm going to do this work off to the side briefly. So this is 120 minus 3 plus 1 plus 4 plus 9 plus 5 plus 49 plus 19. That leaves us with a total of 30 schools that are not private, not old, and not BCS. Alright, so we filled that all up. Fantastic. Now, that took a while, but believe you me, once you've done this a couple of times, it shouldn't take you all too long. I was just trying to explain it clearly. So what sorts of questions can we ask then? Well, what sort of prestige? Let's suppose what schools are prestigious. What might prestige mean? That might mean that you are old or private or, one of old or private or BCS. So that means everybody in all of these guys. Well, adding these guys all up would be kind of annoying. This really is P union B union O. Counting this all up would be annoying, but I know there are 30 guys that are in none of these. So the number of guys in P union O union B is 120, which is the total amount, minus the 30 that are in none of those sets. So that's 90. How about really prestigious? Where here I mean 2 of P, O, and B. So you're either private and old, private and BCS, old and BCS, or all 3. Well, I would add up the numbers 1 plus 9 plus 4 plus 49. And what this adds up to is 50 plus 13. This is 63. So actually, since there are 120 total football teams, 63 of them fall into any 2 of these categories, it's kind of interesting that most of the football teams, in some sense can say, "Oh, I'm cool because I'm private," or "I'm old," or "I'm BCS." Anyways, that's it.